Hey guys, how's it going? Ghost Rich here today, and we're going to be putting that engine in that TJ. You think we can do it, Mika? That's a vote of confidence. Let's go take a look at what we've got over here. So, basically going over the other engine, I know that we have a new intake manifold, which looks way nicer than this blown engine. And we also have a lot of other electrical. So what a lot of this is going to be is chasing harnesses. So like say right here, pull that off of there. Here, we're just going to slide that out. Slide that one out. Come over here. See if we can get that one, huh? Get this one. It's closer. Oh, that one had a warning tab. We'll slide that back in. Or we just don't. But yeah, basically, we're just going to be going around and removing clips. The other thing that you're going to notice is your battery. Quickly grab a 10 or a 12. I think this one's a 10. Loosen it and take that ground terminal right off. So that way, well, we don't need anything to be live anyway. As for this, your reservoir, depending on how long it went before yours went, your reservoir might be full or empty. Either way, if it's full, leave it standing up. Loosen this bolt right here with a flat blade and take this out of the way. Pop all your air filter clips. After you do that, loosen throttle body. Just grab it and wiggle and it comes out, and yes, it takes more than that. We're just going to put this off to the side again. Hey, Meeks. After you've done that, take a pair of clamps. Move that down there. There we go. Do the one on the bottom. The one on the bottom, if there's any fluid at all in the rad, that is exactly where the fluid's going to come out. So put a bucket under it just when you're doing it. And again, this can just sit right here. I'm not going to go down below yet because I just want to get the rest of this kind of taken care of first. All these injectors right here, we're going to take these off of here. I'm going to work with these in a sec. I'm going to get this off first, get this out of the way. I just want this out of the way so I can access things a little easier. See if I can do this or if I need the clamps. Basically what you want to do is squeeze these two barbs, squeeze this back. You might want to pop this out first. And that, we just need a flat blade, and it just pops off like that. This one, on the other hand, I believe, pops out the bottom. Yes, just like that. So now that both these are released off the throttle body, just squeeze these clamps and sink it in like that. And then they come out. This one's easy. Unslip it, tuck it in over there. Over here, you'll see that you have this right here. This is I believe this is a scissor one. Basically, that's how that hooks onto here. I think we just gotta pop it right here. Let's see if I gotta get my flat blade. Anyways, pop this off, throw this one off the side over here. The other thing you can do, if you'd like to, is pop off the heater core hoses here and then put those off to the side as well. This part right here, you just gotta work out. And she's just almost like Christmas tree barbs. Just take it, put that off to the side. And next. So we've got this right here. Probably just take this one right off, right there. Perfect. Put this up here. This one comes off like that. This one can sit up over here. Just like that. Once you've got all your injectors done, you can grab this rail and wiggle it, and it'll take this up because chances are you're gonna need this in your new one. So now, this is the fun part of just following all these wires and making sure they're all disconnected. Let's start with this. So this one, you just have to push this down so you can release this. You can see this one's already up a little bit, just like that. And that's all that's got to happen with this one. Again, sometimes they get jammed up. Just take a flat blade, press against this. It should pop out the other end. And then use your flat blade to pull out the rest. Disconnect these two so we can chase these wires. When you go to do these connectors, just slip a flat blade in like this, and it'll come out. You just have to slip that flat blade in over there, and this will pop out. It's just mine slipped out of the metal tab. As you can see, just continuously disconnect all the plugs. The only tricky one that's a little different than the rest is the alternator one. It's got two side clips rather than the regular. Yeah, basically just squeeze that side clip, keep that all over here, keep that over there for a sec. It was all lifting out, and now time to see what other engine restraints are left from keeping you from pulling this. So we've got all the injectors out. Got this out. We got this. Oh no, see these two that go down there. We're gonna have to pry out those Christmas tree barbs that are down there and pull these, because these I'm pretty sure go down to the transmission. And the thing is we don't want those connected to the engine when they go. You either have two options. You could either just take this plate off and put it on the new one, or if your new engine already has this plate, all I would suggest doing is using a flat blade, prying these little Christmas trees out, so that way the connectors are down, and just disconnect them. This one's already disconnected. Disconnect your throttle body, and yeah, the last two right here. Then that whole harness should be free. Pull that out of the way, grab this harness, work it out, put it over here. There. Now see that? Engine ground. So you can either take it off from right up here, or you could just loosen. I'm going to suggest that you just loosen this bolt right here. It's caked in grease for me, or oil. So yeah, loosen this bolt, take this off. And again, I've just got to grab my Christmas tree popper and get the last one off here. And then we just have to get the barb off of here. I'm not doing fuel until the very end. So we've got another pull off back there. Also, if you follow this big connector all the way up to here, you'll notice you need to take off this one and this one and this one. And again, depending on how long they've sat there for, they could be locked in there really good. Next thing you're going to want to do is you'll notice this plastic casing on the back of your alt. Slip it off, move it to the side. You'll see a bolt down there. Take this off, and that will then release this part of the harness. You can leave this half right here really after you get this off. But then the next thing that you'll see is down here. You're going to have to pull this bolt off right there, and that's going to take the power off of this one. And then if we go up and follow this slide, you'll see it goes to the side of the edge because it's a ground. So pull this ground off, and we leave this. That's all the distributor and the caps for right now. And yeah, oh, we have another connection right here, which again has a safety connector on it. So make sure you pop that safety connector up. Might need to use a flat blade, and then we can disconnect that. So after you pull that, I like to just hand tighten them back on. So I put that one back on here, put this one back on the alt. I took the one ground out on there, or the two grounds, sorry, and I just put that bolt back on. But as you can see, all of our wiring harness is free now, except for down at the bell housing. We can take care of that later on if we want down at the bottom. But other than that, the whole wiring harness is free. So the next thing you can either do is you can leave this entire top end, like the alternator, and whatnot all together. If you have AC up here, you will have to do something with that, whether you disconnect your AC compressor and put it off to the side, or which means that you will have to do your Serpentine now. If you want to do your Serpentine right now and just have it off, all you got to do, so this is your belt. There's a tensioner right here. You loosen this tensioner right here, and as you do that and you loosen this, it will loosen the tensioning pulley right here. So you need to loosen this one, loosen that, you can pull this off. The other thing we can do while we're in here, if we want to, is pull this fan blade. I know mine needs it, or I might just leave it in here until afterwards, because the next big thing we're going to do is we're actually going to take the front end off of the Jeep. And the reason why is if we pull the front end, it's going to be so much easier to slide the engine in, because it's got to go in on an angle and then in. And what that means is we don't actually have to take our radiator off of it, leave it bolted on. So if you want to get started on taking this front end off, bolt here, bolt here, bolt here, bolt right here. Take those out for right now. We got this bolt off, go to that side, take this off, get these out of the way. You don't need them in here. Bolts on the inside, right here, holding the front on. So we need to, of course, get rid of those. This one goes to right here, so we're fine because we aren't touching the fender. So yeah, take this bolt out, take that bolt out. Once you've gotten 1, 2, 3 out there, come over to the front of the fender and you'll see 3 more right here. Let's see if I can get this to focus in better. There we go. 1, 2, and there's one more farther up, 3. And again, just get those 3 that were right there first. My headlights out as a precautionary, but what we're gonna do is come right here. Remember these lovely tabs? You're just gonna squeeze it with a flat blade, disconnect it, and we're literally gonna suck this up and out of here, which we'll have to take this line probably first, but let's see. We'll take this, and what's gonna happen is once we get this up and out, you'll see that it goes to right here. Lift, slide out, get that one out. Might have to come out around the corner here just because it has the most room. Tuck this in over here. This one squeeze once again. Now we're going to use our Christmas tree popper, pop out another one here, and then we'll pop out this grommet right here and go do our Christmas tree popping down there once again, just like we did in the other well, and get the lights out. And then we'll have all the full wiring harness that's connected to here for free, and then we can put it over here. Right here. So you just go in with your Christmas tree popper and pop that one out. And then same here. See how there's another one right here? So we go to this side of the inside of the fender, and there's a Christmas tree pop that one. Like I said, it could take a little bit, but just pop all those out. That one, pull the bulb out of, leave it the way it is. This one, press in the little connector button there and the one on that side, and then slip this light bulb out. Now we've got that free. That can all fit within there. Let's feed that up into the engine bay. So now we know all our wiring up top is free. It's sitting right here. Like I said, you don't have to remove your headlights. I only did because I just wanted to protect them. So the next thing I'm going to do is jump underneath, and we're going to see what we're going to disconnect underneath. Majorly, it's going to be the tranny cooler and the radiator, if you have an automatic. If you do, you're going to want to have a couple screws to put in those tranny lines, and those are what I find to seal up best, because then they'll act like a barb and you can seal up around it, and then you don't have transmission fluid everywhere. And we're also going to pull the Peacock valve on the bottom of the radiator, so grab a pan just to make sure in case there's any fluids. That's the Peacock valve on the bottom of the rad right here. It's right here. You just unscrew it. Get ready for a mess though. Unless you want it to drain slow. This isn't it draining slow. I just pulled it out. If you want it to drain to a certain point or steady flow, it'll take longer, but you can set it and just leave it for a little while. But yeah, if it super drains, I can tell you now, it shoots a mess. So at this point, I'm just gonna let it drain, and then I'm gonna grab some screws here so I can disconnect our tranny lines. And like I said, just put a screw on the inside of those so that way it seals around the screw. The bolts you want are huge. Put it this way, this is like an M8. That's the one I used. It's like, I don't know, it's huge though. So you just take it and you shove it in the tranny line, and then you put the clip back on it, and then it doesn't leak anymore. Just wipe it up. Now that we have the tranny lines off, everything off down here, we'll do one last look. Then we pull that center bolt that is right up by my hand. Let's see if I can get this to focus so you can see it though. That one. So pull that, and then we'll go to the inside over there and release our last screws just like we did in that fender, and this should just lift right out. Once you have the 6 bolts out of there, 6 bolts out of there, and that center one out, we should technically now, as long as there's no other restraints that I can see right now, lift it out and put it over there. It is going to be a little bit heavy, so watch your back. To clear this properly, I'm just going to pull the fan now because it's got to come out anyway. So loosen those 4 bolts and take them out with a box wrench. I'm going to definitely be buying some nuts rather than using the posts. With the posts, the disadvantage is you can't stick a screwdriver in there to hold them where you're loosening off the other 2 nuts. Well, now that we've got that out, and as you can see, the fan's out of the way, literally just lift it up. I've been told not to leave them lying flat down because they have like some hydraulic oil and stuff in them. At this point now, we can lift it out. Now that I got this open like this, look how much easier that is to access everything. Now we can double check here, everything is good. We have the 2 lines right here coming from the transmission, which have the solid piece on here. There looks like they might be joined onto the engine down there, so we will have to climb underneath and take a look. So the next thing to do is undo that bolt and the one on top so the exhaust manifold is free. And then if you look along your fuel lines, up by where my fingers are pointing, those 2 lines that are going across, you'll see little plastic casings that hold them against the engine body. Well, we don't want that. So you want to unlock them just with your flat blade. So that way the little trough opens and move them away from the engine body. And other than that, that should do this side. The crankshaft positioning sensor, which is this one, is on the inside of this bell housing, so we're fine there. We don't have to really worry about that. And then we'll go over to the other side. So undo those 2 bolts and get the fuel lines off of the side of the engine. The first motor mount, just loosening it up, making sure she's good. Threw penetrating oil on here, just 18 and an 18. And like I said, I just loosened up that motor mount. Gonna go to the other side, loosen that one up. And then after that, it's just majorly just getting down there. We're gonna have to take the starter off the bottom there, and then we'll have to pull off the rest of the bolts on the bell housing all the way around. Very important quick thing, do not, whatever you do, pull those bolts out yet. You just wanna loosen them, that's what I'm doing. Just making sure that the bolts are nice and cracked and they're gonna be easy to move. So that way, when we do pull the pins, then the engine will be on the hoist and we can go from there. You do not want to just pull those and then have the engine drop or anything like that. So I've cracked all the other stuff loose. Now I'm just going around to the bell housing and loosening off the bell housing bolts, which are 13. Make sure you pull off the starter. You can pull out the bottom bolt first, which is what I did. First I cracked the top one loose, then I pulled the bottom one out all the way. And then after I did that, then I just loosened the rest of the top out, because you have to support that with your hand as you pull it out. Otherwise it will just drop, and that's not what you want to happen. I also did it with a 15mm box wrench for the top because it was just in an awkward spot. Some words of advice. After that, after you get those ones, there's another screw you can access from the bell housing down here, so pull that one out as well. And work your way up and then go to the other side once again if you haven't, and work the last couple screws out. Mika, should we instruct them on this bolt?
Yeah, we probably should.
Okay, so there's this bolt right here. Goes through like this. One side, which will be this side, will be the 14. This side will be a 15. It's up there. You'll see your tranny dipstick is attached as well. When you loosen it, move that tranny dipstick over, and when you're lifting your engine out, make sure someone watches it, because you don't want it to catch that tranny dipstick and try and rip it out, because that would suck. Figured this would be a perfect time to show you guys this. So after we did the exact same thing we did to the other side, which is remove the 2 bolts, and then there's a higher one with a nut and bolt a little higher up there. For this particular one, half the plate came off. Now, if you look right here, this is your flywheel. See how there's bolts on here? We're gonna have to remove those later. And what's gonna happen is you're gonna need 2 people for this. Or actually you could do it yourself. What you have to do is rotate the engine. So using that very front bolt, which I'll show you when we get to that point, but you will grab it, spin it, loosen, grab, spin, loosen. Once there's no bolts left, then technically we are off of our transmission. I would suggest loosening this nut off and then moving this piece off of there and off to the side. This is going to make your life a lot easier for getting the bolt that's directly below it. There is also like a diff tube there. If you want to, what you can do is just grab it, and it just has one of those Christmas tree barbs. Again, pull it off just so it's off the side of the engine. Another thing I noticed while I was over here is if you look right down, there's another grounding strap right there by the engine mount. Loosen off that ground. This will be on here like that. All you gotta do is loosen off that one bolt, and then you can pull that cover back, move it off to the side, so you have easier access to that top bolt right there. If you want to take your serpentine off before you even go, I would suggest taking a photo of it so you know exactly how the belt goes. It'll also tell you if you're missing any pulleys or anything on the other motor, just in case you have a complete swap out. First thing you do is you loosen this one, which is a 14 mil, and then you loosen this one, and it slowly pulls the pulley away, and then you can literally just pull this off of here like that, and then just work your belt off just like that. You can replace it if you haven't done so in a while. I'm just going to put this one off to the side. At this point, if you want to, you can talk with Mika. No. You could technically start taking off these bolts too, so that way you can remove your power steering. At this point, if you want, you can also take off this assembly right here. It's going to require the removal of this pulley and this bolt, and this bolt. And then you'll have a sneaky bugger right here, and probably another sneaky bugger right here. So remove these 2 sneaky buggers, this one, and this one. After you get these 2, right behind that, there's 2 more right there. You can get them just from reaching around and loosening them from the other side. Right above those 2 bolts that are right here, there's one more, and it's just tucked in, like just above. It's just above it on the AC bracket, and you'll see it. What I did is I left this one bolt in here to hold it while I did that, and then now that I've done that, the whole thing's free. All you gotta do is undo this bolt while holding the pressure and take that out of the way. When you go to pull off this one, what you're going to do is spin this like so with your socket in it, and you'll see right there, you can get that bolt. You'll spin it, you'll take that one, you'll spin it, and you'll get the one on the bottom. See where my ratchet is? Right in the back there. There's one side bracer, 15 mil. That side braces this whole assembly. So pull that one out before you grab these 2. I've already loosened those 3. Next is to pop this one. And then lastly, but not least, that one. From this point, we can see clear as day, nothing is connected over here, nothing's connected over here but these 2 engine mounts, which is perfect. That's what we want to see. 14 millimeter bolt on the top. Literally, I'm just straddling the engine because these are in so tight. You just got to line it up. And after you get that bolt lined up, you might have to, depending on the leverage of your wrench, you'll put it on and you'll tap it with the sledgehammer at a good pace, and that'll help too. So we've got the exhaust manifold undone and dropped. Again, those bolts, they can be seized. I literally let them soak, and then I added more, then I added more. I did those just now, and there's no easy way to get that exhaust manifold to separate from the exhaust. You just have to crank and crank and crank afterwards, which is what I did with 2 ratchets, and it went. I even brought out the big bad boy to get one of them, and now that we've gotten rid of that, that's dropped down. We've gotten all the bolts off the bell housing. We've gotten this all cleaned up. Next thing we're going to do is go down there and drop the drive shaft so we can slide the transmission back. Drive shaft is just these 8 millimeters. Pull them out together, meaning like separate one, separate the other, and then slowly unscrew. And don't go out directly underneath it. Otherwise, if you do it wrong, the drive shaft will drop on your face and you won't like that. If you don't want to let go, hit her with the readjustment hammer. After you do that, and just lightly tap it, and she'll let go. With that, as you turn your crankshaft up top, see this? This is Sharpie. You want to mark, if you can, like this with the Sharpie and like that on the drive plate. Basically, you want to know the exact position it's in so you can make sure that that lines up again. Again, there's only 4 bolt holes, so as long as you make some sort of a dot in here, so that way you can see what you've done and where you've marked it. Again, you can use whatever you'd like. These markers that I have aren't the best, but yes. So like I said, just undo this, go up top, turn your crankshaft, undo the next bolt, undo the next bolt. When you're aligning it, if you look down there, you'll see your plate. See how my bolt's perfectly lined up now? So I can get my socket and ratchet on it. So, like I said, just put a bolt in here, get her on the strap, make sure that strap is in there because you don't need that coming off, and then tie it around the manifold, the last cylinder if you can. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the weight off. We're going to pull these engine mounts, and after we pull these 2 bolts we loosened earlier, then the engine will be sitting on your engine hoist. So you want to make sure that it's nice and tight so it doesn't drop or anything. Make sure whatever you do, your hands are not in the way when that bolt's coming out. So if you can, do your impact with an extension and just get that bolt out. And depending on how much tension you have, it could drop a little. And if your hand's in there, you don't want it to get squished. So once you do that, next we're going to take an impact gun here and we're going to hold that with a breaker bar, loosen that bolt off, and if it moves, or it might be just sitting there freely, again, keep your hands away from this. No need to lose an arm.
Get what?
All right. Almost there. Oh, it fell off. There, just like that. So from this point, we've got the pressure of the engine. Now we need to see about separating the transmission. So this mount's fine. I can jack up past this mount, but this one, when I jack the motor up, it won't clear. So I'm gonna take this engine mount off with this bolt, and there's one just underneath. We'll remove that, and then we'll be able to jack up the engine and slide it right out. It's already really loose on the transmission, so it's pretty much free. We just need a little bit more. Take a look here. You can see the difference. This one's got this, the other one's got the clutch. You can see the bolts right here. We're just going to line this up, drop the engine so we can swap flywheels. Automatic flywheels is super easy. Just literally undo all these bolts and pop them out. Then take this bad boy, because you're gonna need it too, and just work it over the dowels. Make sure that your new engine has these dowels. If not, you'll need them so you can install it properly on the transmission. Adds this extra step. You just need to put a 14 on. I think that's what that is. 13. Put a 13 on, rip off these bolts first, take it off, and then we'll go from there. I found a 1/2 inch actually sealed up better, so I used a 1/2 inch, pulled it off. Next thing is to use the 19 again and rip this flywheel off so we can install the new one. After we're done that, all you're going to want to do is, of course, exchange the hardware. Make sure you exchange that shield once again if you have an automatic, otherwise you won't be able to get at your torque converter bolts. Once you smack this on there, all you got to do is thread those bolts in, thread them all in loosely, and then you're going to crank these puppies back down to 105 foot-pounds of torque. So, I didn't show you guys this. I put the engine in, and I forgot to do this. So I'm going to show you right now. If you got your engine from a manual and you have an automatic, this is going to be in here. It won't even fit in here because it fits so tight, but it'll be in here. Either way, imagine this is in here. Whatever. Then you have a bearing on the inside. And you're like, oh, great, how am I going to do this? Well, some people do it with bread, and they cram this inside collar full of bread. They get a nice tight screw, and they start banging on it until the sleeve comes out. For me, I didn't even bother. I got this for $30 at Princess Auto. It's a pilot bearing remover, and you just stick it inside the center, and see this? Both these arms come up. They go on the side of the crankshaft like so, and this inside goes in. So what you do is you tighten this collar like so, or sorry, you tighten this like so, and as you see how it's going down? It spreads those teeth apart, and the collar locks on the back end of this bearing, and then you tighten this up against it, and this tightens this against here. So then this locks up against here. And then what you do is you slowly tighten this, and it pulls it forward and pops it out. Again, I can't really show you because I did it already. You can always take a look online. Look at pilot bearing removal. Now, when you remove that, there's still a bushing in here which needs to be taken out. So you need a die grinder. So then you're going to literally die grind the edges like so. And then last but not least, you're going to use a crowbar, which I will show you right here. It's almost like a lady toe is what they call it. And it looks like this, but they come in different sizes. And then what you do is you wrap it around the edge on the inside like so, and then pop it out. And it literally will work its way out. It's crazy. If you cannot buy a motor that was once a manual, stock it right here when you're doing it. Otherwise your flywheels spin. So you just jam one in and then put those to 105. Throw some Loctite if you so wish. After you do that, next thing to do is to, well, if you've already got your dowel in, I still have to put my dowel in over here. Then you can go ahead and start mounting this up. Well, transfer the dowel over, use some liquid wrench and a pair of pliers, and soak the hole with liquid wrench and tapped it in with a hammer. Be careful of your flywheel teeth, of course. Now that we've got that, technically we are ready to lift and drop the new engine in. All right, so if we're gonna be sliding this in, just be careful when you're slowly bringing it in. Just watch your dipstick and all those wires. You can see the starter piece has to slide past the dipstick. So as it's dropping, make sure that the starter plate misses there. On the other side, just make sure it's clear too of any wires. I also suggest plugging in, there's that plug on the side of the block there. I already plugged mine in. But I highly suggest you plug in this wire, that plug. This one right here, that goes to the plug right there, because getting that afterwards could be a little fun. After you plug that in, like I said, just be careful, go slowly, so you don't have anything like this. Like, see this? It's a perfect example. Things move as it's coming down and you don't want it to get sandwiched in between. At this point, you can either try and line up the transmission, or you can undo the front drive axle just like you did the rear, and you're going to slowly move that transmission back, drop this, and then slide the transmission in. If you want to mount the engine first, if you want to try and get them both to line up at the same time, good luck. It's a little bit fun. So I'll leave either way up to you. I slowly lowered it. As I was lowering, it wasn't completely lined up. It was actually sitting a little bit on top of the engine mount on that side, and it started to roll, and I was like, oh man. So I went up underneath and I did a push up on the transmission, and it slipped right into the bell housing. So just get it lined up the best you can. Watch your wires, make sure you don't squeeze your tranny dipstick tube, all that other fun stuff. And then, like I said, all I did is I went under the bell housing, I pushed up on the bottom of the transmission, and that flywheel just lined right up. I'm so ecstatic right now. I'm gonna just throw in the engine mounts so that way it's sitting there, and then I can negotiate the transmission underneath, because we're gonna have to line up our torque converter again if we have an automatic. If you have a standard, again, this process can be a little bit more of a pain because there's usually more of a spline that goes into your clutch. So a lot of times you're gonna want to tranny jack and to loosen off that drive shaft and roll the transmission back, drop the engine in, bolt it in, and then slide the transmission back on. Just because lining those splines up in the air can be a little bit fun. I mean, you can always try it. Some people have good luck with it. I'm just trying to make your life a little easier. One of the first things I did is I quickly snugged up all the 19s under here while watching my transmission up there. And now it's nice and flat. This plate's a little bent, but other than that, looking up there, the dowels have slipped into the transmission on both sides, and now I'm just going to thread some screws in there so that way it's good, and make sure the screws thread right through the dowel. After that, we can start. If you want to, you can work from your bottom up, so that way get this done, get the drive shaft back on, and just basically get this section back ready. That's what I would do. These bolts were 90 to 130 foot-pounds is what the manual I have says. I put it at 105 and left it there. So I wanted to say a couple quick things. See this right here? There's a little, you'll see a bar that goes into here. If you have a standard, this is your transfer case shifting linkage. If you want to get more room out of the transmission to slide it back, you can undo the two 10 mils, or maybe they're 12s, I can't remember, but they're right here. You undo those two bolts, and then you'll see this other linkage right here above the pan, and you'll see how it's connected either way. Or sorry, this big linkage right here. And all you're gonna do is, it's held on right here by this big 17 mil bolt. Let's see if I can get a better light on that. That one right there. So you take that bolt off, and there's a little 10 mil style one right here, and you just unbolt these two, and then this whole linkage lifts up and out of the way, which then will allow you to actually slip this transmission farther back when you're sliding it back, and you can like get that thing back to like right here after you do that, and it allows for you to do that. So it's just something for if you are trying to slide that transmission farther back. Now this right here is the shifting for the automatic. So if you have a manual, chances are you might not have this here. Might be something else. It will vary. Now, that being said, if you do have an automatic, you'll have your torque converter right here. When you're preloading this back in, you should be able to you have to finger tighten them. Now, if your screws don't reach, means that your flywheel and everything isn't sitting right. Do not force it by any means. You should be able to hand thread those. So, and again, don't use a tool at first. Just put them in finger tight. Put one here, flip it 180 degrees, put the next one in by fingers, and then rotate it 90, and then 180, and then so on and so forth. Slowly tightening it a little bit at a time. It's very tedious, probably take you about a half an hour, but trust me, do not rush this process, because if you over tighten one side, and it's sitting off balance, you'll either you'll feel it seize up against the plate, or B, what'll end up happening is it'll get stuck, it'll either get stuck completely or it'll start to scrape along that plate, and you don't want that. So now that we've gotten all that, we should be good to go. Also, make sure your marks line up. Remember those marks we made on the torque converter, when we marked the plate, the flex plate, and we marked the torque converter through the window? Make sure those two lines line up again. Other than that, let's get it started. If you want, go over everything you've done up until this point, your harnesses, everything. So with the starter, just put your bolts in. Make sure you put the shorter one up top, because that shorter one, just make sure it doesn't bottom out. And when you go to put that shorter one on, don't forget your ground, your starter ground for the top bolt. After you do that, then you make sure the power, which is the red wire, that goes to the top lug, which you'll see the nut if you were like me and you hand threaded it on. I just threaded it off, put it on, and then tightened up that bolt. And then don't forget to plug your starter in, otherwise it won't start. So loosen that tensioner and let's show you which way. So over, under, or well, I guess it goes like this, around, down. You'll see it go around, and then it goes back like this around the fan blade, over the alt, under the pulley. Make sure you put this pulley back in because you removed it. I bolted in the power steering. I bolted this back in. Decided I'm just going to quickly bolt stuff back in, because if you really needed to, you could rewatch this video in reverse and you would know exactly what you're doing. So, because we're literally just working backwards. After I get this front end back together, the next thing I did is I clicked in, or yeah, the front end, clicked in all our harnesses. I only have these two harnesses left. One is going to be for the AC and one is going to be, of course, for the other. Make sure you slide your heater core hoses back on. One goes up here, one goes on here. I'm going to slide that one back on in a second. Just slip those clamps back down. Again, not too hard. Everything should be plugged in. Follow it. Everything from here over. These ones, don't worry. Those come when we put this grill back on, remember? Also look for all those loose grounds. You have to put those grounds back on. Again, if you can't remember them all, I showed them all in the video. Just make sure you get all those grounds, especially that big 18 one in the back. And there's that one that's right here, and one against the side of the block in the back. There's 3 points right there, right here, and right there. There's also some grounds for the harness. Make sure you catch those. And again, you can't miss them because they're actually on the harness and they have to be bolted down. Doesn't really matter as long as you get those mounted down where they and you should be able to see where they came off of just from the video. After we've gotten that, the last thing you want to put on is your intake, because your intake goes right across the engine. The next thing is, now that I've got this complete, I'm going to tighten up my tensioner as much as I can so this bolt doesn't slide. What I find is easiest, get this all threaded on except for the fly or the fan right here. Leave it down here and then loosen it up enough until you can slide it up here and onto the fan. After that, tighten it up. After we do that, we should be good to go. And don't forget to hook back up your power steering. You're gonna have to top that up. When we put this on, we can hook our tranny lines back on, as well as our hoses up here. After this, so you've gone over everything. You're like, okay, starter's plugged in, injectors are all plugged in. You've gone through your harness. If you don't have AC, you should have those AC coils. Those are the only ones you should not have plugged in, like this one. And there's one more back there that I don't have plugged in. Oh, sorry, I have two. These two are for your AC. So put these back here. I'll zap strap those after. We've put new fluids in the there. We've got new fluids in our rad, and I haven't topped up the ATF yet because right now, since the pump hasn't run through yet, I'll have to top that up after because I did leak out some ATF. I ended up switching my torque converter while I was doing this. I just didn't do it in this video because it was like a 2-week process, and you don't really need to do that if you're doing your engine. So we've gone ahead and she started. I'm gonna probably have to go through a couple more sensors, just make sure we're good. Another thing you can always do is cycle through those gears because we're gonna check our transmission fluid level. But yeah, other than that, she started. Woo woo. very exciting. And don't be worried if you smell a little bit of burning, because any fluids that came out of it are going to burn off, and you are going to smell some smells. But other than that, that's all there is to it. We just swapped an engine. Monitor, if you have any errors and stuff, use a code reader and just check. And if it says a misfire or something, make sure that if it says like cylinder 2 misfire or something, make sure the plug's in properly. Or make sure the plug, you might have to replace the plug depending if it's a used motor. And also check your wires, make sure they're fresh. I did an oil change on this before I even started it. So either way, I hope this video helped you start and get this new engine in your Jeep. Thanks again for watching. Press a like if it did, and subscribe for more.